Hi everybody and welcome to a special edition of Heel Heat. This is a review show. My name is George Coles. This is my tag team partner, Ace Steel.
No, not as bad. The name's Gary Rhodes.
And today we're going to talk about something that just came out today.
Today.
What is that, GR?
The brand new CM Punk DVD and/or Blu-ray.
The best in the world. Now, we've only had time to watch the documentary portion. We haven't watched the wrestling matches at all yet, and we watched a little bit of the extras.
Yes.
So that's what we're going to focus on. Now, the first thing we want to talk about is how he became CM Punk. Earlier in his life, he didn't really fit in with his mom and dad. Had a bad home life, and eventually moved out to live with his friend Chez.
Yeah, and she and her family have taken him in, and he's part of the family. Actually, the sisters that he always talks about are actually Chez's sisters.
Exactly, and that's something I didn't know till I watched this DVD.
Neither did I.
And it's been used on promos before, and ever since back in Ring of Honor, his dad being a drunk, and his dad was actually a drunk.
He was.
He says that he's not as bad as they play it up on TV, but every good angle is 10 times, what it is really.
Well, there's a part of it where he says his dad was supposed to pick him up from a Little League game when he was a kid, and didn't even show up until like late, and he showed up drunk.
And he was the assistant manager, so it's doubly bad.
Yeah.
And then his dad was puking in the car, and CM Punk thought he had cancer.
Yeah, so he's worried about his father, so he takes off and starts crying, thinking his dad's dying.
Exactly. Then after that, you got him in high school. He was kind of a nerd, didn't really fit in, like comic books.
Yeah.
Had different color hair. Until he found straight edge music, hardcore straight edge music. For those of you who don't understand, it's an offshoot of punk music. It's a little bit different than punk.
Yeah, they don't get drunk, they don't do drugs, it's all about the music and all about a clean way of life.
And when he found this, he found that as his place in life because that was his lifestyle. And another thing that he also found around this time was the Piper versus Snuka infamous situation where Piper hit Snuka in the head with the coconut.
It would just break the coconut.
That's what it did with Snuka too.
No, he would just wouldn't even phase you, George.
Anyhow. It didn't face Snuka either.
Oh, it did. Piper ran like a little bitch because, anyways.
Snuka threw a bitch out the window.
Oh, yeah.
Man,
that's a rat, by the way. That doesn't matter.
That's for Snuka's DVD. We're not going to talk about it here. But that's really what he says got him into wrestling, and it got a lot of people into wrestling. Piper is what brought me to wrestling as a kid. I wasn't a Hulk Hogan fan. I've always been a fan of the heels. I know you were a Hogan fan when you were a kid.
Yeah, but then I sit there and you watch the matches with him and Piper. Piper could have been so much bigger.
Yeah, and he really was. He really was huge. And then he started backyard wrestling when he was about 15. Him and some friends and his brother. His brother ended up stealing money from the company and soured the relationship with CM Punk.
I haven't talked in 12 years.
And he hasn't talked to him since 12 years. They ran some shows, were running against the Chicago shows that were legitimate shows with trained wrestlers and getting more draws.
And these guys were like the outlaw guys, and we're just destroying them, by number of fans showing up. He said they were getting like 1,000
fans. Who knows how true that is? I doubt it at an indie show. But it could have been. And then he decided after some guys ran him down talking about his quality that, how much better could I be if I actually trained? And this is when he went to the Steel Dominion with Ace Steel was the head trainer, and Danny, I forget the other guy's name. I'm sorry about that, guys. But watch the DVD, you'll find it out if you don't know already. And this is where he met Colt Cabana. 3 months later, Colt Cabana walks in the door, and as soon as they met, they became best friends.
And put on some epic matches against each other. And you'll see some promos, but yeah.
A little bit of footage.
Yeah, a little bit of footage of their matches, and they were excellent shots.
And this was basically what got both of them on the map is people would book CM Punk versus Colt Cabana to be on the show, and they'd go to the show together and tear it up, and you had a solid 15, 20-minute match.
Mm-hmm.
And you could book that every night, 10 nights, 10 times in a row, and they did a different match every time.
Then they ended up going to IWA.
IWA Mid-South.
Yeah. Which
was run by Ian Rotten at the time. I think he still runs it.
And that's where he met Chris Hero, and then they put on some of the best matches in indie shows.
Some really good indie matches. They did everything from a ladder match where he says in there they tried to destroy the building they were working in. And even they worked their way up to their feud where they had a 90-minute match, which if you ever seen the match, if you haven't, go look it out. It's not on this DVD, but it's CM Punk versus Chris Hero, IWA Mid-South, I want to say around 2002. Look it up. It's a 90-minute match. It's well worth watching the 90 minutes because they tell one hell of a story.
Oh, yeah.
And all these guys from there, CM Punk's starting to feel like, okay, I'm a really great wrestler until
he wrestles Eddie Guerrero.
and then he realizes how bad he is compared to Eddie Guerrero, because Eddie Guerrero is top of the food chain at the time.
Oh, yes.
And this was when Eddie got fired from WWF. He did a couple indie shows.
It was about, a year or two before he ended up winning the WWE title.
Yeah, exactly. And Eddie, at the time, was absolutely the top of the heap. There was pretty much nothing better. And the only reason he wasn't in WWE was the drug problem he had at the time, which he did get over eventually. Thank God he cleaned himself up before he died. Unfortunately, he died soon after he cleaned himself up, which is a shame. It really is, because Eddie Guerrero is sorely missed.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, he went into Ring of Honor, and this is where I became a CM Punk fan.
Punkophile?
A Punkophile. He also wrestled in a thing called MLW, Major League Wrestling, which is where I first seen him. He wrestled Raven on Major League Wrestling, and at the same time, he was in Raven's group, The Gathering, on TNA, and he was feuding with them everywhere else but TNA.
Mm-hmm.
And Raven really helped his career, helped put him over, showed him little things, how to work the matches, and he even says it in here. He cut one of the most epic promos I ever seen at the time in Ring of Honor about Raven. They show most of the promo on here. He goes into the whole straight edge character and why he is who he is. And this is when I was already a Raven fan, so I was watching anything Raven did.
Oh, who wasn't, though? I mean,
And this is what brought me into being a CM Punk fan, so I said, who's this kid? Who's this kid that's hanging with Raven and in some cases showing Raven up?
Yeah. Well, I mean, what was his win-loss record against Raven? I think Raven never beat him, right?
No, it was pretty even, actually.
Really?
Yeah, depending, they built the feud like an old school feud. One guy would win and then the other guy would win. And then another, and they built it to where it was always escalating from a dog collar match to a cage match.
And after Raven, though, and a lot of people were surprised they put it on the DVD, which I'm not, is they put his rivalry with Samoa Joe.
Oh yeah, some of the greatest matches in the history of wrestling. They wrestled a 3-match series for the Ring of Honor World Title. The first 2 matches were hour-long draws that are just epic, and the third match they wrestled 25 minutes and Joe went over. Basically, they didn't want to give you another hour-long match. They wanted to keep the fans guessing. 3 of the best matches Ring of Honor's ever put on, and 3 of the best matches of the last decade in any business, any company. Probably 3 of the top 10.
Yeah.
And I was actually surprised they put Joe on here, how big he is in TNA, and they don't normally acknowledge TNA even exists. Then after that, in Ring of Honor, skip forward a little bit, they give him the belt. Well, he gets the belt after he signs his WWE contract. And then, at the time, he was a face, and as soon as he wins the belt, he turns on the fans and cuts a promo saying that he's the devil incarnate, he's going to leave Ring of Honor and take the belt to WWE.
And I like the fact that he signed his contract on the belt.
And I didn't know this. I thought it was just a prop. That was the actual contract he signs on the belt, and that's pretty freaking funny if you ask me. Because anything could have happened. A fan could have jumped the guardrail and ripped it up. And then he goes, a lot of people, Paul Heyman says that he expected him to go right to the main roster, and they sent him down to Ohio Valley, which was what Paul was booking. And Paul says he got in trouble several times for saying, why is this guy not on TV? You got a hidden gem down here that you're just wasting away.
It's true, fast forward so many years later, you see where he's at. But and Heyman has an eye for things, just like they didn't take Heyman at his word.
And that brings up another thing with Heyman. When he started ECW, the relaunch of ECW, which crapped out eventually, don't get me wrong, I've got a lot of bad things to say about that, but that was after Paul left. When he started ECW, the one name he wanted to bring in to start a new star and give the mantle of ECW, give the history, give the the vibe of ECW, give it the rub, was CM Punk, and he brought him in to be the showcase guy.
Mm-hmm.
And even at that time, Triple H and Shawn Michaels were both really high on Punk, whereas Vince really wasn't. He wanted John Morrison to be the guy.
John Morrison.
To be his ECW flagship. And don't get me wrong, John Morrison was a great ECW champion at the time. I really liked the show with John as champion.
I liked it with John as a champion too. And it's a shame about the politics that really got him out of WWE.
Yeah.
But it's kind of ironic how Vince was so for him then and so against him a couple years down the road.
Exactly. And then CM Punk eventually wins the championship from John Morrison. He ends up losing it back to Chavo. They don't mention that in there, but it's minor, really, to the story of CM Punk.
Well, the whole time when he wins the championship, he thinks he's going to get future endeavored.
Yeah, yeah, because he was afraid that he was getting fired, and they even say in there, I think Michael Hayes says it, that there was a lot of talk of letting go CM Punk while he was in ECW, because the upper management, they don't say who, but I'm assuming Vince, just didn't know exactly what they had and know what they could do with him. Then after that, the next year, what was it, WrestleMania 24? He wins Money in the Bank, which was a shock to him. He didn't know he was going to get it. They let him beat Edge because that was the draft night, and Edge was going to SmackDown, so they took the world title off of Edge. And what happened was Dave Bautista attacked Edge, and then as Edge is laying there, CM Punk cashes in,
Brings the ref out.
wins his first title, and then he really gets frustrated because he's pushed to the middle of the card. They're not building it around the title. The big
And the thing that Michael P.S. Hayes says in this DVD that kind of irritated me was some people are bigger than a championship.
It's really true, though. I agree with him. Guys like The Rock are bigger than the championship. Like him or not, John Cena is bigger than the championship. He doesn't need to be the champion to be big. Undertaker doesn't need the title.
No. Well, look at Shawn Michaels. He hasn't had a title in forever.
When you could go, what can you do with the Undertaker?
You're going one-on-one with the Undertaker. That was my bad one. I'm sorry, folks. It caught me off guard.
If you think it sounds like Cleveland Brown, let us know in the comments.
I got a heartburn right now. I ate spaghetti.
Got meningitis too. But anyway,
Reserves.
after that disappointing run, and they took it off him in a weird way. They did a championship scramble match, which he wasn't even in because Legacy attacked him in the back. And he just lost. Mike Adamle just said, okay, he can't defend it. He's not the champion. Whoever wins is the champion. And it was kind of shitty what they did to him. And that begun his frustration.
Yes. But then they put him in the tag tag picture with
Kofi. And that, he became friends with Kofi. And they're still friends to this day. They still ride with each other. As you see in the video, CM Punk has his own bus. And Kofi rides with Punk. I don't know who else does, but I'm sure other people do. It's a huge bus. I don't see him being the kind of guy that says no. After that, he had some of the best matches, I think, in his WWE run against William Regal to win the Intercontinental title.
And I've always been high on Regal. I've always thought Regal was one of those guys that just never got the right push.
No.
And him and Regal put on some great matches for the IC title. They didn't mention the fact that Regal beat him in the King of the Ring tournament. But, I mean, I'd rather have the IC title than be the King of the Ring.
That isn't CM Punk's DVD, so why mention his...
Well, honestly, if you see that, the match was an awesome match. Yeah. It should be on the DVD.
And it's another thing. They do have the Regal match where he wins the IC title at the end of the tournament. It was a phenomenal match. Regal is well underrated as a worker, and it's someone that really believed in CM Punk. Which after the Intercontinental win, it led to WrestleMania. Fast forward a year later, WrestleMania 25, and CM Punk being the first two-time Money in the Bank winner, and I think he's the only one to this day that's won it twice. And he eventually cashes in on Jeff Hardy, which leads to his heel turn, which leads to the Straight Edge Society.
Which, we'll go to the heel turn, is Vince really wasn't too confident about his heel turn.
No.
And he goes, give me 3 months, I'll be the biggest heel you ever see. Fast forward 3 months from that, he was, top heel.
Right. I think he says in there, he goes in there, they wrote him something due, and he goes in and he gives them 16 weeks of TV with the Straight Edge Society.
Yeah.
And he said he doesn't know if Vince even opened open what he gave him, or Vince just liked the attitude he came in with it. And he said when he started it, he brought in his friend Luke Gallows, who is a legitimate friend of his, Joey Mercury, who's another friend, and Serena, who he doesn't say is a friend of his. I don't know that she really was, but he does put her over as really good worker in there. And even in this, Joey Mercury talks about him saving Joey Mercury's house. Joey Mercury was a huge drug addict, and coming off his drug addiction, a year and a half before he even brings him into the Straight Edge Society, CM Punk, he can't afford his mortgage. CM Punk cuts a check for he said it's a six-figure check to buy his house, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what kind of a guy CM Punk is. He's intensely loyal to his friends. But from what I understand, he can be a dick to the fans out there. So if you've met him and you had bad experiences, I'm sorry. And I'm sure he's sorry too. I mean, he did punch a guy last night twice.
Yeah. But which brings, after the heel turn, he ran a promo with the Taker, and I thought that was a very good promo.
Still the only person on WWE to make Undertaker tap.
Yeah.
Just saying, just putting it out there.
Yeah. Well, I liked, and they didn't really go into that whole storyline too long
because it was still Biker Taker.
No, that wasn't Biker Taker. Biker Taker was
he was already back.
The whole Teddy Long was following his cult for a little bit, the Straight Edge Society, and cost the Taker the match.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I liked it. I thought, and the one thing that he did earn out of that was the Taker respect.
And that's something that even Michael Hayes says that Taker said to him, I didn't think I was ever going to respect this guy, and now I do. I remember reading a couple years ago that Taker gave Punk shit for showing up to the shows in a t-shirt and jeans when you should be showing up in a suit. And Punk said, "This is my gimmick. I gotta live my gimmick."
Mm-hmm.
But he did earn an Undertaker's respect, which in the WWE is probably the biggest thing you could do.
Oh yeah.
Now after that, after the Straight Edge Society, they kind of fast forward a little bit. And they cut right to the promo. And if you don't know what I'm talking about when I say the promo, I don't know why you're watching this video. But he cuts them probably one of the 2 or 3 greatest promos in the history of wrestling. Just totally rips into everything. Vince gave him a mic and said, "Go out there and air your grievances on TV."
Yeah. And I mean, it cuts off around right after not Night of Champions. What was it? Money in the Bank.
Well, it cuts off a little bit later than that.
Yeah.
But it shows the whole entire promo, and up until Money in the Bank, he was planning on leaving even during the show, Money in the Bank, the show, and they literally signed a contract halfway through the show, and that's when he became the champion, beat John Cena. No one knew. Colt Cabana didn't know. Ace Steel didn't know. No one in the back knew what was going to happen.
Nobody.
We didn't know as fans. I didn't know. And when I seen him win, I knew he had signed a contract, but I didn't know he was going to win. I thought he would just lose and be gone.
Yeah, well, yeah, another one under a Cena belt, you know.
Yeah. And pretty much after that, they show his appearances, and he's making more TV appearances. The whole impact of that promo and what it did to his career. And Triple H says it's his Austin 316 moment, which it really is.
Oh, yeah.
And then after that, they just kind of fast forward, go through everything he's done, show him at WrestleMania this year, show a little bit of everything he's been doing this year. And then the thing that I think made the documentary for me, they show all the thank yous to Pro Wrestling Illustrated.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to spoil it, but stay there after the thank yous. And it really is a funny spot to you, especially if you're a fan of movies from the 80s.
Oh, yes. That's all. That's enough said on that.
Yeah.
Now, what would you think? No, one of the things that is missing is him with a new Nexus. You know, they weren't together a while, but they did bring some decent talent in. But, they didn't talk about that or his rivalry with Orton.
They didn't talk about either. I think it was a little bit of they needed time for the, DVD, and also I think that they're wanting to bring the Nexus back, and they don't want you to remember the CM Punk version. Maybe with some other guys. Who knows who the leader was going to be. But if you watch the shows, they're bringing up Nexus when they talk about Wade Barrett a lot, how he was the leader of Nexus, leader of Nexus, leader of Nexus. They always bring it up, so I think they're bringing it back.
Yeah, they could.
in my opinion. Now, overall, what would you say about the documentary portion of this?
I'd give it a 5 out of 5, man.
I would say it's definitely a 5 out of 5. It's one of the better ones that they've done. It's probably, as far as documentary wise, I think it's right up there with the Shawn versus Brett one.
The rivalries.
Yeah, I think these are the two best that they put out in a long time. The matches on there are epic matches. If you buy the DVD, just walk by for that. I bought the Blu-ray just because I wanted every little piece of it, every little extra that I could. And really, I don't think he's the best in the world. I think he's the second best in the world, but I am a big fan.
Who's your best?
Bryan Danielson.
That's right.
Daniel Bryan, I'm sorry.
You know, and I did like the fact that, you know, he had all his peers talking, you know, good about him.
Yeah, and he did have everybody. He had people on there that I wouldn't expect. They had Chris Hero, Colt Cabana, Ace Steel. You know, guys that aren't with the WWE, but are important to his career, and I like that about it. But basically, that's all we got to say about the review for this. You have anything you need to add?
No, I think we covered it all.
I'm George Coles.
Gary Rhodes.
And this has been a Heel Heat review.